Imagine living a life of service and having a story so big and large. Imagine marching with Martin Luther King, being there when he passed away. Imagine marching hand in hand with John Lewis and Andrew Young. Imagine starting the Rainbow Coalition. Imagine being the first black man to run for president and actually having a chance to win until, of course, you put your foot in your mouth, but nobody's perfect, right? We all make mistakes. Even I put my foot in my mouth sometimes. Imagine having a life that big, that given one of the greatest speeches that still inspired me to this day. As a young man, I remember hearing your speech, I Am Somebody. A speech that made the common man who felt marginalized feel like they were a part of this country, that they could stand up on their own 2 feet. Imagine giving one of the greatest phrases in American history. 50, 60, 70 years of a life of service, and at your funeral service, it gets turned into a F Trump rally. Now listen, I don't know if that's what the family or Jesse Jackson wanted. If that's the case, hey, I have to respect it. That's their wishes. But if it wasn't, what Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris did was one of the most disrespectful things I had ever seen.
You show up to a man's funeral where the entire point is to talk about his life, his legacy, his accomplishments. And somehow, y'all managed to turn that shit into a damn political press conference. Oh man, shit, the audacity is almost impressive. Kamala got her ass up there talking about, I predicted a lot about what's happening right now. I'm not here to say I told you so. First of all, when someone says I'm not here to say I told you so, that's exactly what the hell they're doing. That's like saying no offense right before you say the most offensive shit known to mankind. This is a fucking funeral, not a State of the Union therapy session.
This is why I don't give a damn about Jesse Jackson being gone. Obama spoke at Jesse Jackson's funeral today, spewing the same shit I was taught, I was indoctrinated with as a child. This speech was so negative. Literally, black people have to be dragged through the mud and brought back up. You know, they have to feel inspired and worthy of good. I'm so sick of this damn messaging. It's old, it's whack, it's played out. Literally, these people are casting spells and have damaged the black community. They have set the black community back.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. So as you seen in that introduction clip, and I'm pretty sure you've already heard the story surrounding Jesse Jackson's funeral that occurred yesterday, where you had prominent Democrats go on a Trump deranged rant and tirade at this man's funeral. Now, mind you, this was after being told to leave politics out of this funeral.
Funerals were not for the dearly departed. He believed funerals were for the living. He believed that they were great gathering meetings, and no two life or lives in human history will have the same number of people attending their funerals, or the same people will be at their funerals, because your friends ain't my friends ain't your friends. We don't know the same people. You don't know the same people that I know. Do not bring your politics out of respect to Reverend Jesse Jackson and the life that he lived to these homegoing services. Come respectful and come to say thank you. But these homegoing services are welcome to all. Democrat, Republican, liberal, and conservative, right wing, left wing, because his life is broad enough to cover the full spectrum of what it means to be an American. We only ask people to come and be respectful in the context of the extraordinary life that he lived. Dad would have wanted us to have a great meeting to discuss our differences, to find ways of moving forward and moving together. And if his life becomes a turning point in our national political discourse, amen. We expect a grand meeting of people who are beneficiaries of the life and the work of Jesse Jackson. We expect it from the far right, and they are welcome if they come respectfully. And we expect it from the far left. Honor Mrs. Jesse Jackson. This is her request. Caricature that you've created as a media of who our father is not the reality of who we know him to be. So what's happening now on social media is a more accurate depiction of the work of Jesse Jackson, and it's happening and occurring without you. That's the truth. Because institutional media has historically controlled the narrative of who Jesse Jackson is. You've made him to be more controversial than he was. You've made him less multinational than he is. You've tried to make him someone from a side of town and not universal. And so again, the caricature of who you think he was compared to the reality of the education campaign that is taking place independent of you is what's taking place. My mother said it this way: history is going to be far kinder to Jesse Jackson than the life that he lived.
Yeah, so even after being told to leave politics out of this, these Democrats could not help themselves. Their Trump derangement is so strong that they turned this man's funeral into a political rally. That's what this literally felt like, and it's absolutely embarrassing. And these people have no boundaries and no morals whatsoever. So that's what we're going to get into. I have some highlight clips of all of these people's rants, and we'll talk about it at the end. But before we get into the videos, guys, please hit the like button down below. It really helps the channel out. Let's get into it.
I also like to honor the 5 presidents who are sitting here today. President Harris, President Clinton, President Bill Clinton, First Lady Jill Biden, President Biden, in Chicago's own South Side, President Barack Obama.
Let me just say, I predicted a lot about what's happening right now. I'm not into saying I told you so, but we did see it coming. But what I did not predict is that we would not have Jesse Jackson with us right now to help us get through this. And this afternoon has been such a beautiful remembrance of his spirit, his life, and his faith. And in a way that Reverend Al talked about it and so many others have, I do think of this afternoon as what it is doing for me to renew my faith in what is possible, fueled by the hope that Jesse Jackson so often reminded us of.
Each day we wake up to some new assault on our democratic institutions. Another setback to the idea of the rule of law. An offense to common decency. Every day you wake up to things you just didn't think were possible. Each day we're told by those in high office to fear each other and to turn on each other, and that some Americans count more than others, and that some don't even count at all. Everywhere we see greed and bigotry being celebrated, and bullying and mockery masquerading as strength. We see science and expertise denigrated, while ignorance and dishonesty and cruelty and corruption are reaping untold rewards. Every single day we see that, and it's hard to hope in those moments. So it may be tempting to get discouraged, to give in to cynicism. It may be tempting for some to compromise with power and grab what you can, or even for good people to maybe just put your head down and wait for the storm to pass. But this man, Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson, inspires us to take a harder path. His voice calls on each of us to be heralds of change, to be messengers of hope, to step forward and say, send me. Wherever we have a chance to make an impact, whether it's in our school, or our workplaces, or our neighborhoods, or our cities. Not for fame, not for glory, or because success is guaranteed, but because it gives our life purpose. Because it aligns with what our faith tells us God demands. And because if we don't step up, no one else will. How fortunate we were that Jesse Jackson answered that call. What a great debt we owe to him. May God bless Reverend Jackson. May he rest in eternal peace. God bless you.
He showed me where the slave camps were. And I will never forget, he said, Al, you see what that artifact is? I said, what's that? He said, they call it the door of no return. When you go through that door, you either made it to America to slavery or you died in the Atlantic. The door of no return. But I talked to him about 3 years ago, and I reminded him, I said, remember when you brought me to the door of no return? He said, yeah. I said, well, we did return. We returned the President of the United States, Barack Obama. We returned the Vice President, Kamala Harris. We returned with businessmen. They thought they sent us as slaves. We came back as global liberators. The problem is that too many of us did not join the movements that sponsored us. And there was a breakout in 2024 called Negro Amnesia, where you forgot where you came from and forgot how you got where you got. Therefore, they're trying to take back everything you have. I asked Michael Eric Dyson, our prominent scholar, where in history is this? He said, we always go one step forward and two backward. Well, here we are now. The problem is not Trump. The problem is us. We are allowing ourselves to be lowered and our children to feel inferior because you don't have an I am somebody person. You got our artists calling our women bees. Our others calling us niggas. What happened to us? What happened to black and proud? What happened, I'm gonna vote? What happened, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around? What happened to us?
It was on a wintry night. It was on a wintry night, January 6, 1919. Theodore Roosevelt died of an embolism coronary. When the word came back to the Vice President Meslin, he asked, how did he die? The answer responded back, he died in his sleep. Vice President Meslin said that makes sense because had he been awake, there would have been a fight. Jesse Jackson died in the middle of the night because had he been awake, there would have been a fight. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here because this is the first modern prophet in American history to prove to be bulletproof. This is the very first prophet that the government could not compromise and was able to stand. Those of you who are wondering why we have been here this long, the service wouldn't have been this long if we were able to go to the Capitol, but the Capitol is now only reserved for pedophiles and podcasters. We're in a critical moment in history. A critical moment in history where it is that we have to figure out what are we fighting for and all that we're running for.
Yeah, so there you have it. Absolutely incredible. These people have no boundaries and no morals whatsoever. And matter of fact, I highly believe that this is the reason that Donald Trump did not attend this funeral. He already knew that these Democrats were going to go on a Trump deranged rant, probably the whole time, especially if he was present. And one of the reasons that I believe that he also didn't show up to Jesse Jackson's funeral is, I mean, Jesse Jackson pretty much abandoned Donald Trump. Donald Trump was one of his main supporters when Jesse Jackson was running for president. But when Donald Trump ran for president as a Republican and everybody else came out of nowhere and smeared him as a racist, as a bigot, Jesse Jackson was nowhere to be found. So I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump is holding some type of animosity here. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Because you sat there and watched a person that you called a friend literally get dragged through the mud, being called a racist, a bigot. He does not like black people. He's going to take black people's rights away. He's going to put you back in chains. All that nonsense. All of that nonsense. And Jesse Jackson was silent. May he rest in peace. But I also could understand why Donald Trump could be frustrated at this. So let me know what you guys think. I thought this was fascinating to expose these evil Democrats sitting up here behind this cross, degrading the church, and literally bringing politics into an environment where you should have never brought it whatsoever. So let me know what you guys think. Let's talk about this video in the comment section. Of course, if you're brand new, consider and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.